And so we are going to have this global report, human rights report. We feel that this is a human rights issue, and therefore we need to speak up, and we need to also let our people know what is going on, so that we will not just sit and allow ourselves to be abused year after year, day after day, time after time.
But Africa allying itself with China and India, that is a new day.
This is what they call the African World Report. And so we have to use the best examples of our history to move forward.
In Africa for 12 years. And I know that I'm blessed. I just thought about Mikasa and myself when we went to Baghdad in 1983, when the war between Iraq and Iran was on. But and wherever he goes, we were on our way to Babylon, and I learned this from him, and I used it throughout the world. Wherever he saw a black man, he spoke. So we got to Babylon, and there was a traffic light, and there was a black man directing traffic, and we said, "What?" And so we figured that he was a migrant or something. So we asked. Her name was Salwa. If your memory is failing you, mine is all right. Her name was Salwa, and so we said to Salwa, "Where's that African from?" He said it. "Where's that African from?" She looked out the car window, checked him up. She said, "He's an Iraqi." And in the southern part of Iraq, it's loaded with people, African black people who have been there. And in Basra, that's right, black people. And so wherever we went, he would always say, "Hey, African." Where Africans are weak right now is modern technology and farming. And they love the land, they love farming, but they can't make no money, so they gravitate towards the cities. And so the American companies right out of Arkansas, #1, ships chickens and everything and rice to Africa. Africa can grow enough rice to feed itself. So this is the marriage of Africans in the diaspora. The brother who was here, he is right. There's no level of consciousness among many of the Africans. They come here to get in the country to make money. They think that the streets are paved with gold, and when they come, they can't go back home with failure, so they stay here until they can send money back home. I lived there, I know it, and I watched it. But how can we harness the knowledge that we have blessed with? Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was the first one who really saw it. When he went to Lincoln University, he studied Garvey, he studied us, and he said that here is the source of power and resources that can help build the African continent. Because we know every aspect about building. We've done everything for this white man. There's no field of knowledge that black people do not know in America. But here we are fighting with him for jobs and begging him, when there's a whole continent that's waiting. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it like this, that we need to separate and go to a land of our own, either here or somewhere else.
That's right.
The somewhere else has to be the African continent. Right. White folks will fight us tooth and nail to hold on to what they accept these white folks in South Africa and call them African. Then what about across the north? Gaddafi put a death nail in that because there was a movement against the Arabs. But it wasn't really a movement against the Arabs, it was a movement against Islam. The conflict in the Central African Republic right now is being pitched now as a conflict between Muslims and Christians, and it opens a door for the French to come in and recolonize because of the wealth. Look where it's located, right above what my brother just got through talking about. Here's the Central African Republic. And it's rich with uranium, gold, diamonds, bauxite, you name it, and it's the size of France with only 4 million people. And so where did the conflict come from? There's always been Muslims in the Central African Republic. They border Sudan and Chad, 2 Islamic countries. But the key was that the French wanted it back because the riches had not been exploited in the Central African Republic, so they used the same excuse that they used to go in Mali. You mean to tell me that the African Union is so weak that it can't solve its own problem? And they can't ask the West, don't send troops, give me the money, and we will solve our own problems on the African continent. But they know that they have destroyed Muammar Gaddafi. Barack did it. Now, you know, I disagree with him totally. I wouldn't vote for him the second time, but he did a good job in South Africa. And sometimes you got to divide between. And if you look at him, I came in the Nation of Islam under Malcolm. He's got all of Malcolm's gestures. He's got Malcolm's cadence. And he's conscious. If you read The Bridge, how did Barack Obama become conscious? When he got to New York, he began to read. And the book he said that impacted him most was what book? The autobiography of Malcolm X. Then he writes, but I was torn, because Malcolm made a statement that I hate every drop of white blood in me from those that raped my grandmother. And he was torn because his mother was white. But he's controlled now. Don't make no mistake about it. Right. And when he killed Gaddafi and he was directly responsible, I had a problem. But what you got to look at the aftermath. He wanted to destroy the power of the African Union. Gaddafi, you may disagree with Gaddafi on points, but you can't agree with everybody on every point, right, unless it's a prophet or unless it's a divine scripture that you believe in. Right. But Gaddafi was a human being. Good man. And I've known him since 1977. I know what he did for African leaders. Yes. Museveni, who kicked him under the bus first, he wouldn't be in power if it were not for Muammar Gaddafi. Here, Jammeh, as soon as Gaddafi was on the road, Jammeh here in the Gambia, knowing that he wouldn't have nothing if it were not for Gaddafi. Yes. Ungrateful. I want to close out because my brother got me good on the Congo and I really learned so much from him. Come on. We met with Mobutu. And as I said last night in Birmingham, in Alabama, Minister Farrakhan was in Libya. We went to see Gaddafi. And when we were leaving Gaddafi's place, there was Mobutu. A whole busload and a whole delegation. And we said, what in the world is he doing here? But this is the time that you talked about. He had been kicked under the bus. And he said that, and he told us, he invited us to come, and we had to think about that because the jacket that he was wearing. And so when we were on our world tour, we got a call, and he invited us to come to Zaire. We went to Zaire. We went to his hometown, if I'm saying it right, Golobolito. How do you say it? Badolite. This is where he built his thing. We flew our plane there. The brothers dressed, Dennis and Mustafa had on their uniform. Their people said, you can't see the leader, take that off. So they went and changed clothes and we went and we sat with him. And I'm going to tell you, the conversation was interesting. First, we were trying to figure out why was he seeing Gaddafi. Gaddafi despised him because all of those years that my brother was talking about, he was being used by the West to fight the legitimate struggle of our people, and he was despised by progressive revolutionary forces on the African continent and conscious Africans in the diaspora. But he told us, sitting at that table, he said, I did everything they asked me to do. I obeyed them, everything. And now they want to get rid of me, saying I'm no good. And Kwame Ture, and you know, Kwame was my brother. I love him. I got a picture of Kwame and myself over there on that table. But let me tell you, and I noticed that those who with Kwame, they teach like Kwame. Where is my brother at? He got Kwame's ways. But I don't want to miss this point. Kwame Ture made the point about this. He said that when the colonialists and the slave master use you, they do two things. They feed you to your people or they kill you. Mm-hmm. They turn your people against you when they finish using you. That's Kwame's quote. And Kwame, you know, when I moved to Africa, he came to Ghana to give me my first African lessons. And they were good lessons. And I just got to tell you this one because I hope that if Allah blesses me to live to put it in my memoirs. Kwame was at my house. When he came to Ghana, he stayed with me. And Kwame had to speak in Freetown, Sierra Leone. And he said, Akbar, I got to make this plane. I got to make this plane. I said, well, I didn't say my prayers. Let me go upstairs and say my prayers. So I went upstairs and I said my prayers and I came down. And I said, Kwame, you got $20? Give me $10. He said, what's that for? I said, when I get to that airport, this flight is booked. I'm going to have to bribe somebody to get you on this plane, and I need American dollars to do it.
Dash.
That's right, the dash. I had to do the dash. So Kwame said, boy, you are something. Because when I first got to Africa, one of his first lessons, everything you do in Africa, you got to put a spare tire on it. He said, see, you're a nation of Islam. And y'all think that y'all can just say, do this, and it's going to happen. He said, in Africa, it's not going to happen like that. He said, everything you plan, put a spare tire on it. So when I came down, and after I said I'm going to say my prayers, and I came down and asked him for that $20, he said, boy, AKBAR, you learn quick. He said, now you're putting a spare tire on Allah. You said you were just going up there. Let me finish the point. That we have to, the Pan-African movement among our young people is very weak. You have to have babies. And sometimes there's this conflict. The conflict is, I'm in the Nation of Islam, I'm not a Pan-Africanist. See, that's one of the conflicts. Or the other group, I'm in the church, I'm in this church.
All is one.
See, and listen, you got to learn how to work together. One of the most profound statements that Amiri Baraka said is unity and diversity. We are diverse, but you got to be engaged with our people. And everybody is not going to look the same and think the same, you know. And I know that. I've lived long enough to know that. Allah has blessed me. I've been to 144 countries in the world, and I've looked at diverse societies. I've been to 44 African countries. And whenever I go to an African country, I'm trying to study and find out how they move, how they think, what do they do. How do the youth in Africa, the youth is the hope of an African Union. So you won't have to have 54 passports. So I got dual citizenship with 54 countries. But you'd have one passport. It would be the African Union or the United States of Africa diaspora.
Come on with
it. Doesn't mean just having it. Means that you can move around the continent. You can go into business on the continent. And I want to say this, and I'm going to close on this. That Nelson Mandela's death. Now, you know, he was definitely, he started off as a Marxist and probably a communist. And that's the way it started, because the Communist Party of South Africa existed before the ANC. And those of you know how the communists operate, they always split and make other groups so that they can work from different angles. So the ANC comes up. The Communist Party of South Africa was mainly white folks. But they understood how the Afrikaners were shaping that society. It came from a playbook from Lenin, but yet and still they turned it into their capitalist game. The proletariat on the bottom, the petty bourgeoisie in the middle, the bourgeois on the top, and the ultimate rich. The ones that were the proletariats on the complete bottom were the black people. But they needed a buffer in between the black, so when they brought the Indians in, they were like the buffer. And so when the brothers started, they started at a right position, because Nelson Mandela, even from jail, and when he first got out, they were talking about nationalizing all of the gold mines, all of the diamond mines, all of the platinum mines. But he saw that the minute he did that, that this economy that was the strongest on the African continent would fall apart. Muammar Gaddafi, he said, I'm going to challenge y'all to go and get on YouTube and look at the debate at City College in New York. The date is right on my mind. I think it's July 21st, right after Nelson Mandela. It must be 1990. His first trip to America, on the Ted Koppel show. And on that show, there were two profound things that happened. One is that they were questioning him about the people who he was associated with. See, it should be a great lesson for us. They said that what about the likes of Muammar Gaddafi and Fidel Castro and Arafat? And Nelson Mandela said that your enemies are not necessarily my
enemies.
But we have to be clear. Again, we're not just struggling for an end to apartheid in South Africa or an end to Jim Crow in the United States. We're struggling for power.
That's right.
And the idea was going to be that our former United Nations ambassador, Andy Young, would sit at the head of the Southern Africa Development Fund.
That's how the NAACP started. Do you hear what I just said? The NAACP and the modern civil rights movement came from the Pan-African movement.